one of the most amazing things that comes out of a lack of resources is creativity. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
you said, like they talking about like how you got $1 million and you know how to pivot. Like we had to figure, we were poor, you know what I'm saying? So we had to figure it out. And I think that's a message that has to be louder, because I think a lot of times like when individuals don't have it, like they think about all the things that they don't have when they don't tap all the way into everything that is
Right.
birthed out of like having to, like when you think about like some of the greatest inventions that haven't been attributed to those people that actually invented them, like how
Right.
were they invented? They were invented because they did not have access to certain things, so they had to be
Exactly.
created. And so what you talked about, like even going back to your Alabama State days, recognizing the history that you were a part of, like individuals have to understand the history to recognize that, hey, this is now, like this is your birthright. This is what you come
Right.
from. You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
so if they were able to be as creative as they were able to be without, what are you able to be creative without, the resources that you have? Like tap into that. What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Welcome to the Identify Your Lane podcast, where we interview guests who have mastered the lane and we discuss how did they know that the path that they are in right now was the right path for them, for the sole purpose of helping others identify their lane so that you, the guest, can go and become a master of your lane. I am your host, Daniel Truelove Jr., and I am super excited about the guests that I have for y'all tonight. Man, we go way back, back to like 2004. We both attended Alabama State, and man, she's a powerhouse doing absolutely amazing things. Not only being from an HBCU, which I think is absolutely dope, but also starting her own business and all the impact that she's having out there within the community, which I'm a super advocate of. And so I'm excited just to be able to chop it up with her to talk about how did she get to where she's at, because it was absolutely a long journey for her. But the place that she's at right now is absolutely phenomenal. And I know that this story is going to impact the lives of somebody listening. So without further ado, I'm excited to interview my guest, none other than my girl, Yaz, what it do, girl? How you doing?
What's up? What's popping?
Yo, I'm good. I'm good. How you doing?
I'm good. Happy to be here. Thank you for considering me to come and talk to you and your listener base about whatever I have going on.
Okay, no, I'm excited about it. Listen, the pleasure and the honor is all mine, man. You the goat. So I'm saying, so I'm grateful that you are here tonight. Obviously, your time is very valuable. I mean, you just got back from LA, then from LA to Atlanta. And you be listen. I want to know what your frequent flyer miles is like, because I know your points is heavy. I know your points is heavy, for real, for real. And so I want to start here. So yes, for those that may not listen, you got, first of all, if you don't know who this is, you're under a rock. But for those that may not know exactly who you are, introduce yourself to the guests.
Oh, I am Yasmin Salina from PG County, Maryland.
PG.
Yeah, PG. Right now, my main goal is to focus on the betterment of lower performing neighborhoods by providing access and key points to them. So I have a very long, extensive background into like youth development, entertainment industry, and policy. So I think that, I mean, unless you want to know a little bit more, but I am the co-founder and executive director of the Hustlers Guild.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. And we're definitely going to get into everything that you've been doing with the Hustlers Guild and your journey there. But I want to start here when it comes to this topic that we're talking about. When you hear the terminology "identify your lane," what does that mean to you?
When I hear like identify your lane, I really feel like that means like figuring out who you are and then like owning it, right? So
Mm,
identify your is the emphasis
mm,
that like I take heed to is like your like what is your thing is not like identify a lane is like yo what is your thing, like what's up with you, like
mm,
what you got going on, like what is your superpower, and then
mm,
sticking into it. But I when I look at identify your lane, I feel like that means like taking ownership of like who you actually are
Mm,
and owning it and like just stepping into your actual superpower of being you. Like, this is your lane, do what you do. Like,
mm,
rock out. It doesn't always have to be what's mainstream, it doesn't have to be what's trendy, but I
mm,
think it's like identifying like what who you are to your core and then owning that.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So when somebody asks, "Yo, Yaz, what's your lane?" What do you say?
I just be like, for me, I feel like my lane is just like really being I'm a very person that's heavy into key and core values. So like I value integrity,
Mm,
honesty, being genuine, but also more importantly like service. I feel like I know a lot. I have access to a lot of things, and for me, my lane is to be a key point or entry point to service to others, and really trying to I like to meet people where they are, number one.
I love it.
And when wherever they are, I want to help them define what is success to them, what is happiness to them, and a sustainable lifestyle that they can create and be happy in. So when I look at my lane, I think my lane is literally the core of like who I am. It's like, being to service of others. And I
Mm.
feel like that's why I'm like really here.
Right, right, right. Which is dope, and which is why you're doing what you're doing, being service to those, those communities in which you're making a tremendous impact in. And so I want to talk about this because I think, obviously, you haven't always been where you're at right now. So let's talk about the journey of getting to where you're at right now. And I want to start with, let's talk about the HBCUs because you attended the HBCU. Shout out to Alabama State.
What up,
Right. So
ASU, Banner State?
I know, right? So you attended. So how in the world did you get from PG County to Montgomery, Alabama? Let's start there.
I mean, honestly, like I think it was a lot of pressure to go to like Howard, and I feel like when you're in this area, like Howard is usually like the go-to, like Howard
Mm,
University. And for me, it's like it's cool as Howard, but like when you grow up in an area,
mm,
and that's like you always know that. I think out of me, my siblings, and like my parents' kids, I feel like I was more so of like the rebel risk taker.
got you,
So
got you.
I didn't want to be like in close proximity of my parents, and I just like identified a school that they couldn't get to in 4 hours.
Mm.
And I knew that they wasn't going to come visit. Like they dropped me off. This is the thing. They dropped me off at ASU, and then they picked me up once I graduated. And
For
that was
real?
literally yes. I mean, but
Mission
like
accomplished.
right. But my whole thing was like I wanted to go somewhere that they just couldn't pop up, and I wanted to like do my own thing. I didn't want to go to
Mm,
college. I wanted to go to like a journalism broadcasting school to kind of get into radio and stuff like that. My parents was like, nah. So it was just me being rebellious and was like, all right, well, I'm just gonna pick somewhere far and outlandish to go to. And I ain't gonna lie, when I got to ASU, I was like, oh, this look like a juvenile video. Like, but I kept a straight face. I was like, all right, see y'all later. Bye.
Yo, I ain't gonna lie to you, man. When I got to Alabama State, I was like, yo, what did I just do? I was
I said the
like,
same thing. I was like, yo, like you really gonna do this, bruh?
yeah.
But like, I think it was a great experience for me, especially being like the
Mm,
home of the civil rights. Like I love history. I'm obsessed
mm,
with the civil rights, and I think like to be there in like the heart of everything and to be with like in that history where the kids at that university
mm,
played a major role to mobilize like social justice. I
mm,
think it kind of like really opened my eyes to like, oh, like if you know where you come from and know where you're going, like damn, Bama State was like a part of my history of who I
mm,
was or who I wanted to be. So I felt like you walk on the campus with Rosa Parks and Dr. King was like setting up stuff to like
mm,
really get us to where we are now. Like, how can you not take pride in being like that focal point of such a huge movement that had like a global impact on
mm,
just people in general? So I kind of like took that a little serious. Like, oh, like students at this university was actually passing out flyers. They was doing the bus boycott. They were marching.
mm.
Like when you know you're now part of that history, it's like how can you not be a part of greatness or at least keep that legacy going to whatever that means? You see, I got my girl Coretta. That's a ride or die
Okay,
right there.
yeah.
I keep Coretta behind me.
Right. That's awesome. That's awesome. But I think that what you just said is important. because like you have to understand the history, right? Because if you don't understand the history and it's just like, oh, it's just a decision that I'm making and it doesn't have anything connected to it, then you're like, oh, I'm just going to Alabama State and it's just what it is. But
Right.
like when you talked about earlier about like understanding your core, living by your core, and obviously being of service, then you realize that so many people that were of service to the black community, and you realize that you are a part of that history, then you realize like, man, this is just bigger than just a college that I'm attending. Like I'm actually a part of history myself, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you went to Alabama State. What did you major in? Because you said you wanted to do journalism. Did you end up doing that, or what did you end up studying?
I ended up studying public relations,
Okay.
communications. Like I just stuck within like the communication. See, the thing is, I'm not good at math. Okay, I know like 1+1 if it equals three.
Yeah.
I know they don't
Yeah.
make sense, but you know what I'm
Right.
saying. I'm not good at math, and I mean, I wanted to go. Like, I love the interest. I like the culture. Like, I
Mm,
love hip hop. I know mainstream media kind of like move and influence the
mm,
black community. So I feel like a part of like just understanding what communications was is like really like no one was exposing you to like the different career paths that was actually in it. And so
mm.
when you,
Yep.
back then it was like, not back then, but like at that time it was like, oh, you want to be on TV or radio, and then radio just like dismantled itself. But there
Yeah.
was like no one saying like, oh, like podcasting, technology, marketing, brand management. There wasn't like
Mm,
really a few like into, but I'm glad I just stuck to like, oh, I know for a fact whatever I want to do, if I can figure out the actual key part of communicating in relationships, then I could figure out the rest of it on my own. But
right.
that's pretty much like my mindset was for the communications. That's I did communications and PR and like campaign management and stuff like that when I was at ASU.
Okay. And that kind of segues into what you ended up doing post college. So let's talk a little bit about what did you end up doing right after you got out of college? Because you said you went back to PG County. Is that correct? Or where did you go back to?
Yeah, I came back home. Yeah, I came back home after leaving Alabama State. During that time, we graduated in a recession. So
Yeah.
there was like no, I wanted to stay in Atlanta, but there was like no one was giving out jobs. Like you couldn't even get a job for like $7 a freaking hour
Yeah.
down in Georgia. So I had to go back home. Ended up, DC is a, very federal heavy place in government and
Mm-hmm.
policy. So my first job out of college, I was in a basement of an energy company, a company stuffing envelopes.
Oh wow.
And I was like, yo, this cannot be life.
This ain't
Like,
it.
I know I did not just graduate college to come in this
Man.
basement with
Yeah.
no service and stuff envelopes for 8 hours. So I kicked that job to the curb in like 3 days. And then I started like doing surveys. I was like, yo, I just need money. So
Right.
I was doing surveys and I just started like saving money, bought myself a MacBook because I
Mm.
knew I needed like the highest technology. I landed another gig at the Department of Defense, and then I got
Mm.
bored there after 2 years. And my homeboy hit me up and was like, "Yo, come work at the White House. You should apply to an internship." And I'm like, "Yeah, you're bugging. No." Was like, "I hate politics. I
Yeah.
don't like anything dealing with politics. I'm not into
Mm.
their world. Like, I want to do this." And he was like, "Yeah, you're tripping. Like, you should come over, or consider it because like the work that you do in the community." Like that's public service and
Mm.
it's not about writing policy, but sometimes it's just about having like your wits just to kind of
Mm.
like figure stuff up when it comes to
Yeah.
like problem solving. So he
Yeah.
talked me into leaving a salary position with a 401k and health benefits to go be an intern for free.
Wow. Yeah, he
And
that's a good salesman. That's a good
yeah, he
salesman.
did. But at that point, I was just like, I look at it as a sign, right? It's like
Mm.
this is someone who I absolutely trust. And for him to recommend something, maybe he sees something that I don't. And I think that's very key about having people around you that give sound
Mm.
advice to you is to be able to listen to them and they'll be able to coach you through situations that you may not understand at the set. So I looked at it as a sign, like, yo, he may be opening my eyes to something else.
Mm.
And he was like, yo, they have a management and logistics side of the White House. And I waited until the last day and I applied to it. And I got a call, got the interview, and got the internship. And I was just like,
Mm.
oh, now I got to go tell my parents that I just left a salary job for $72 a month or Subway
Wow.
fare. Like, but
Man.
throughout that process of like being vetted, I was saving money. I bought a camera. I just started doing like headshots for people. Like I was on a hustle. Like I need to save money. I don't come from like somewhere that I feel that it was fair that my parents had to like sustain the lifestyle that I needed. So, you got to make money in some legal way. And I started a
Right.
photography business just to kind of make sure
Mm.
that I wasn't bringing too much pain to them financially, that I was able to
Mm.
keep myself afloat in some sort.
Okay. Okay. You said a lot there, and I'm excited about diving deeper into it. So, talk to me about leaving that salaried position for an internship. Like, was it, how difficult was that? Because I can't imagine that being like something you'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, I got the sign. This is a sign that I should be doing something different. Boom, going for it. Because you really realized that, man, like $72 a month. Is that what you said?
Yeah. And
So
that
so
was
you
gone
went
within
from
3 days.
salary, 401k to $72 a month. Walk me through that.
For me, the way I looked at it is I was always like, and my parents, they took so many risks in their career and like building
Mm.
up who they are, but they always wanted us to play it safe. And I'm just like, how?
Mm.
Like,
Yeah.
how do you even see that that's possible when all I see y'all do is
Yeah.
take risks?
That's
So the way I looked at it is like opportunities, they come and go. Nothing is like permanent. And I was
mm,
like, at the end of the day, I'm betting on myself, right? So it was like, I'm not looking for a sustainable lifestyle to come from consistency from something that I have no control over. At this point, it's me. So it's
mm,
like, I know that I'm not going to be someone that's just like okay with doing stuff mediocre or just like getting
mm,
by or something like that. Like I get bored easily if I'm
yeah.
not challenged, and a lot of times I can do this stuff in my sleep. But
Mm-hmm.
at that point, it was like I'm just taking a bet on myself. But I knew once my parents was the last person to find out. I called
Uh,
two of my mentors, and I was like, "Yo, like I got a gig at the White House." I was like, "What you calling me for? Congrats!" And I was like, "Yo, it's not paid." And they was
yeah.
like, "Yo, when do you ever care about that stuff? Like, you know how to make money. You're smart. The money is going to come, but everyone don't get a call from the White House to come serve the country at the highest office." And I was just
True.
like, "All right, cool." And I've learned when stuff is going on, I talk to certain people that are going to be with whatever I have on the table. They're going to say
Mm,
like, "Hey, you want to go to the moon? All right, cool. This is how
right.
we get to the moon." They're not going to talk me out of doing it,
Mm,
but they're going to be like, "All right, you want to get here? Like, boom, this is what you need to do." And
mm,
they know, like, they know what I'm capable of,
right.
sometimes even more than what I am. But it's sometimes just good. I'd rather have someone that, like, really see stuff in that kind of sense versus someone that is afraid for their own personal insecurities and they'll project it onto me.
Mm,
Because I would have talked to my parents, they would have been like, no.
nah.
And then I would have got in my own head, like, yo, I'm bugging. Like, like,
Right.
why would I do this? And I probably would, I know for a fact I would have ended up where I am right now at
Mm,
all. Like, I would not have gotten that. But it was a once in a lifetime opportunity to work for the first Black president and to
come
serve
on.
this country. So I was just like, yo, I'm doing this. I'll figure
Right.
the rest out later. Like,
Right. 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 That's
I'll figure it
dope.
out later.
Yeah. So, so I have a question that you just said. So, you said so when you were in that, like you had to hustle, right? You started your photography business. Tell me about how you feel like having to hustle during that moment of actually taking that unpaid or really lowly paid internship. How that played its part in who you are today, because you had to kind of get it and you had to see that you were probably capable of maybe even more than what you thought in that moment.
Right. So it's like when that process came up, it's like, all right, number one, you just roll the dice on yourself.
Yeah.
So it's like at this point, it's like you have to like really push yourself to get where you want to go. And it was like really just like, yo, if this is what you want, I'm a firm believer in that you get out of life what you put in, right?
Mm,
So if you
come
put
on
in
now.
discipline, consistency, persistence, if you're doing the work that you need to do, how
Mm,
can it not come back tenfold, right? So I knew for a fact, all right, if I'm just gonna be out here and I invested into this camera, I gotta get some money. Like I know,
yeah.
I know
Yeah.
how to
Yeah.
take
Yeah.
pictures, so I
Yeah.
know that the
Yeah.
money gonna come in. I was like consistently booking weddings and headshots.
Mm,
I'm trying to do anything that I can do to make sure that I can also do this internship. And then once I got to the internship, like all of my people that I was working with was like, "Oh, you do headshots? Like I need something for LinkedIn."
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and then I just started doing like all of their stuff, and then I started doing weddings, and I found all these different ways to monetize from off of skill sets that I did have in order to take like, I look at the White House as like a shift and then a jump up. So it wasn't something that is like a clear trajectory up. It was like, nah, this is gonna put you over here to bounce you up higher.
Right.
And I just had to be okay with that. And I knew it was a temporary thing. Presidents aren't in the office forever. I didn't know what was going to happen, but I was like, yo, at the end of the day, I need to really, really capitalize off of the position that I'm in
Right.
and look at what's around me. It may not be, the money wasn't there, but that the socioeconomic status of the Rolodex that I now had at my fingertips, people pay a lot of money for. So it's like, all right, cool, the money not there, but now I now have access to a network that I would never have gotten anywhere else outside of being here. So I
Right.
realized that.
Yeah, that's big. That's big. Like you talking heavy right now. you talking you talking heavy right now. So let's talk about it. You just dropped something major. You worked for the first black president of the United States. Like, tell me about that experience. What type of honor did you feel that was? And also, like, did you meet Barack? Like, tell me something that maybe like the general public may not know. I
Oh,
want to know.
everybody always asks that. Like, what? Tell us something else. I would say that working at the White House was probably, it was a time, like, it was like every day to wake up every day and know that you're in a history book is like something I really can't explain, right? There's so many tremendous things happened during the time that I served at the White House. It's like every day that you wake up, you literally know that you are a part of history, and that all of these big events that are in the textbooks is like you will literally remember every last one of those days.
That's big.
The pressure of it was there was so much stuff that I had, or me and a few of my peers dealt with, that I feel like people will understand. Like, like now we became like, our network, our friends, like you or just anyone, family in
Right.
general. Now everyone say like, I know somebody that work at the White House. And
Yeah.
when you're that for 5,000 people in your network, it's a lot of pressures, because like
Yeah.
some of the things that may be stressful for us on a day-to-day basis, people are like, but you're at the White House, but
Yeah.
you're working at the White House with the president, and they really don't
Yeah.
understand like the wear and tear emotionally that may happen. At the same time, I was like 24.
Right. Right. Right.
Like,
Right. Right.
I'm like
Right. Right.
I'm like so young in this field where it's like no one was a big fish. We were all like together in the highest office in the most prestigious program in this country that is recognized everywhere. And it was amazing, and I'm so glad that I cultivated so many relationships. I have so many close friends that we just went through the same stuff together and that we were part of, and like you build a strong bond, and it was like amazing. Like my class, spring 2011 for the White House, we were probably one of the closest bunch, all 154 of us. We are so close with each other, and we still communicate to this day with each other. I can call them. I really lean on them. We're like a huge extended family. We really understand it. They're amazing. Just to be alongside other people. I had people in my class that built like hospitals in Africa, like and got water to like communities that didn't get it, or that like fought for social justice in like Texas. Like there are so many amazing people that went off to be elected officials in their cities, or to be doctors and lawyers, and just like amazing human beings that you can
Right.
possibly imagine. And just to have like that kind of bond with them, and to know that you all like did something together, to me is amazing. And now I really do get how people in a different tax bracket live, and
Yeah.
how their kids and their family are able to benefit off of that. And I wanted to be able to do that for my family. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Facts.
why can't
Facts.
we be the first one to get into? And I'm not mad at it. It happens, but
Mm-hmm.
people work extremely hard and they sacrifice a lot to position their network, their friends, their family, their kids, or whoever, to benefit from things that they put so much work into. So it really opened my eyes to how I like changed and perceive like how I looked at like life in the full landscape.
Got you. That's dope, man. That's amazing. I agree with you, man. Like, why not us? You know,
Right.
like why not? Like if they could
Right.
do it, like it's possible. Like it's available to us. Like, but we gotta. It's obviously like you said, it's gonna take work, and you know, we just gotta be willing to actually put that work in. But also, like you said earlier, man, you like it's not gonna come without taking some risks. You know what
Oh
I'm saying?
yeah.
It takes risk to be able to be in a position like that, and you have a history of taking those risks, and so you already positioning yourself for that already. So, but I do want to say, so what was it like? Did you get to interact with Obama? Like, what was that like? Give me at least one. Give me
Right.
one story, just one.
One story. Okay, I'm trying to make sure nothing gets me in trouble. Uh he okay, so I definitely got to meet the president and the first family multiple times.
Okay.
I worked in a very unique position that allowed me to communicate with them on a daily basis. So um you know, I mean, I was his alarm clock, so I worked, woke him up and just make sure
Wow.
that he got up for the day. It was a
Mm,
very stressful, intense job. No one wants to wake up the president, but you have to, like, hey, get up. Hey, the country needs you right now. Time to wake up.
right. Right.
But he is so chill. Like, one thing that I really did enjoy about working at the White House and for the first family was that he took time to, like, to know who was around him, right?
Mm,
So it was like, he was very personable, like, even like interacting, you know what I mean? Like, he was very kind, very,
mm,
like, like, he had a whatever you see on TV
that's
is that
real.
plus more. It's not
Oh
like,
wow.
oh, he get behind doors and he's yelling. He such a
Mm,
kind person. Like, I learned so much, like, just like his demeanor and just like how to, like, flush and get through stuff. The first lady has a presence, a grace,
I
an
bet.
anointing around her that she could walk in a room and literally
Mm,
shift the entire energy just by her
yeah.
being there. She doesn't even have to say a word.
Mm,
And, like, just to be around some people like that was always, like, really, really cool. But I mean, like, the president, he was just so chill. Like, he
yeah.
was so
That's
chill.
dope. That's
And
dope.
like, when someone is that chill and have that kind of personality, you just didn't want to screw up.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to
Yeah.
mess up. Like,
Right. Right.
what I'm
Right.
saying? It was a different kind of leadership. It's like
Right.
you was always on it. But I did take my family when I left the White House. Everyone got to do a departure photo with the president,
Oh,
and
that's
he'll invite you to the
dope.
Oval Office. Yeah, and so, of course, like, my friends always make fun of me, like, you're the first picture that we see where it's like a whole bunch of people. Like, was there not a max limit? I'm like, listen, I told them straight up. I said, listen, I got three siblings. Both of my
Mm-hmm.
parents are still here, and I have a
Mm,
niece and nephew. They was like, Yasmin, there's a max.
yeah.
I said, you can't tell a black family that it's a max. I was like, do you know how aunties, uncles, and cousins are, like, our siblings
Straight.
and our second parents?
Nope.
I was like,
Yeah.
listen, I don't. I said,
Mm-hmm.
there's six of us and my niece and nephew. Like, they're kids.
Right.
Like,
Right. Right.
so everyone be like making fun of me, like, yo, yours was like the first picture I seen where it was like, are you
10B.
serious? But
That's
I went
dope
in
though.
there and, like, he spoke to my niece and nephew. He gave, like, them an apple and, like, a little, like, gift and stuff like that.
Oh man,
And my
that's dope.
family was so awkward. Like, I was like, yo,
Yeah.
he's cool, he's chill, like, just
Yeah.
speak. They just got in there and they just literally stared at him like a statue. It was just like, but me and
Oh
him were
man.
just looking at each other. We were like, so I was like, you guys
Yeah. Right.
speak. And so he was just like, yo, so
Yeah.
his question was like, was I always am I a good boss? I was like, yeah, you're cool. Sometimes we gotta
Right.
snooze through it, but you're cool. It was literally like one of the most awkward moments of my life.
Mm,
Like, my family was just literally like,
yeah.
I was just like,
But
say
I could
hi.
just imagine though, like you gotta think like that's history, like in a history
Right.
that, especially like when I think about your parents and my parents, what they had to go through, and then for them to be in a moment like that, man, I could just imagine that. You know what I'm saying? So I would understand like them like being like it's a moment to where it's like, man, I don't even know what to say
Just
in
say,
this. You know
right.
what I'm saying? It's like And like, if you do say something, it's like, man, I don't want to say the
The
wrong
wrong,
thing. You know what I'm saying?
right,
It's like, so
right.
I think it's more so saying the wrong thing than it is to saying anything else. So, you know what? I'm just gonna take this whole moment in,
Yeah, that's
man.
pretty much what it was. It was like awkward
Yeah,
silence the whole time. Me and him were just like, I was like, yo, you were a great boss. I appreciate you.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and
That's
they were just
dope.
literally just stared at him. I said, he was like, I guess we'll take pictures. But
Yeah.
like, just to be able, like, yo, when I was at the White House, like, I was pushing tours out. It was to the fact that people thought I was a tour guide. Like, I'm like,
Mm,
no, I'm not a tour guide, but I have access to tours. And being that I am now that person to a lot of people, everyone, I don't care if it was your grandmother, your auntie, your uncle, if it was somebody
mm,
that you was dating at the time, like my friends that were teachers, I was letting like their whole school come through. I think when I was an
wow.
intern, I had like 3,000 visitors. Like I used to push tours out. I didn't have to know
Man,
you because I didn't want to be that person that
that's
had
dope.
access that could not pay it forward. So I also
Mm,
met so many people off of like the strength of my friends. Like, hey, I got somebody in town, somebody grandmother's that's in town, somebody auntie that's in town. It did sometimes it did, I was like, I don't even need all that. Like
right, right.
just send over the stuff. Like I have this is something that it doesn't interrupt my day. Even
Mm,
if it did, I'm going to do it. This is a black president. I'm not going to be a gatekeeper with
right,
access. And then like, no, I'm not being a service. Like I'm a public servant. A part of me
right.
being a public servant is to service people, and I'm going to do it. I gave so many tours. Like people thought I was a tour guide.
Man,
It was like
man.
every day I was giving tours. Like every day I gave so like it was ridiculous.
But this
I
is the
was a
thing
tour.
that you just said there is that like it's the access. You know what I'm saying? So it's like there is a certain responsibility that one has
Oh,
or
right.
should have when they have access to, like you said, to pay it forward. And I think that's something that more people should actually like take into consideration. Like with what I have, how can I make sure that other individuals out there don't have the same uphill battle, don't have the same issues, don't have the same problems that I have when it comes to
Right.
gaining access to this? I'm going to make sure that that bridge is much shorter for you than it was for me.
Right.
And I think that's amazing. It's something that everybody should actually take into account and say, how am I managing my access?
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
something like I really think that people like I still meet people to this day that stop me and be like, "Hey, you gave me a tour at the White House. I wanted." It was so many thank yous.
Mm,
Like some of my friends reached out and was like, "My mom told you, hey." I was like, "Oh, tell her I said hi." Or I
right.
meet people that was like, "You don't remember me, do you?" And like I don't for a lot of
Right.
reasons. And it was just like, you gave me a tour at the White House, or people just send like so many kind words, and it's not about doing it for like something to help me sleep at night. It's like I just don't want to be that person that now I was a lot of people representative for the White House at that time. And that's a
Mm,
responsibility that I had to live with at the time. But like if you was to hit me up and you're like, oh, I know somebody I went to school with to work at the White House, you asked me for a tour, and I'm just like, no. You're like, well,
mm.
dang, like you now I represent you in like
Yeah.
in so many ways. I represent so many other people, and I just didn't want to ever be that person that didn't make something accessible when I knew for a fact it was one of the easiest things that I could
Mm,
possibly do, like ever. It was
yeah.
like,
That's
cool,
dope.
submit your name, go have a great time, send pictures. And
Mm,
like you said, we have like grandparents that lived through like the civil rights, and everyone had all these people that had to see everything that happened in the country to be able to have a black president that was there, and to just be able to walk in his house at
mm-hmm.
that time could mean something to so many people, and you never knew
Right.
what their path was. So I
Yep.
just wanted to be like, yeah, I didn't care.
Yeah.
I literally didn't care. It
That
was like
changed.
whatever. What do you
That changed the game for a lot of people because now they saw like what's really possible. You know what I'm saying? So the question I have for you after that is that, so you said you left. You talked about your family coming through with your departure. What did you left to go do what?
I went over to Homeland. I did 5.5 years at the White House, and I finished up the remainder of the administration over at Homeland.
Okay.
So I went over to Homeland to work in their engagement department, managing like the southeastern states and the governor's relationships between the states and federal government.
Okay. So I just when I said at the very beginning when I was doing your intro and I said I got the goat on here, I just want people to, now you see what I'm talking about. You feel me? So like I said, man, yo, you dope ass, and you've always been dope. So the thing that I think that's amazing is that like nothing changed from pre, whether it be from Alabama State, whether it be to you working in government, to even to you now. Like you've like, because sometimes we can get into certain places, certain spaces, and now things can begin to change. Because like,
Right.
oh man, yeah, I'm rocking with Obama, right? and things can begin to change about you because of what you have access to. But the thing that I love about you the most is the fact that like you've been Yaz ever since I've known you. You know what I'm saying? And so shout out to you for that. And so let's go. So let's go here. So now, when you left the White House, talk to us a little bit about some of the, not just the relationships you built there, but you built some relationships and then you went and started doing something different. Let's talk a little bit about Hustlers Guilds and the initiative that you have, what you're doing there.
Right. So after leaving the White House, I did like a 4 month like sabbatical. I traveled like 15 countries, and I sat down with my
Mm,
mentor one day and I was like, yo, I have an opportunity to work with the hip hop artist to do like his community initiatives. And she was
right.
like, don't do it. And I was just like, oh, okay. And I was like,
Huh.
so what am I supposed to do? And she was
Right.
like, do your own thing. And she was like, I feel like you should do
Mm,
your own thing. And the work that you do, she was like, literally, you're like a walking brand. Like certain things you do, people like, oh, that's Yaz. Like, of course
right.
it makes
Right.
sense.
Right.
And she said,
Mm,
being that you have that, that will attract multiple people. So you're not locked into one person. And so I was like, well, do have an idea for organization, but I didn't want to start it until I was like in my 50s. And she was like, do it now. And I was
mm,
just like, okay, she comes from this kind of background and I really trust her. Like, she's like a second mom to me. And she was like, you should do it. You can do it. She was like, I know you can do it.
mm.
And I literally filed the paperwork by the end of the week. I had no idea
What?
what I was doing, but she told me that I could do it, and I trust her. So I was
Right.
like, well,
Right. Right.
she said I could do it. It can't be that hard. I called her back. I was like,
Right.
yo, when you said that, did you mean I had to like pray it into me, or like, what do you mean you said I can do it? Can I do it right
Right.
now, or do I gotta like
Yeah.
seek more spiritual guidance?
Right.
But she was like, yes, like you can figure it out, you can do it. So that's when I started the Hustlers Guild. I literally started on the front room of my friend's floor. I was just like sheet of paper, and I'm just like, yo, this is what I want my organization to be.
Mm,
And we like brainstormed, and I sent the paperwork, made a few calls. I was like, I want to start an organization. This is the commitment I needed to be. Some people was like, yeah, no.
mm.
I'm not being a part of anything with the word hustlers in it. Like it doesn't have a good connotation to it. So a lot of people
Oh.
told me no. It was like, yo, you should pick something a little bit more safe, or I don't,
Mm,
it's too like, I don't want to kind of do those things like hustlers. They want to think about like cocaine and
right.
drugs. So a
Right.
lot of people gave
Right.
me a lot of pushback. I went to like called my boy Jason. He went to Tuskegee. We've been friends forever. We've done business before. I was like, yo, I need you. I need you for like 2 years.
Right.
I was like,
Right.
we got money together. We did business. I trust you with my life. I just, this is what it's going to look like. He was like, I'm in. Called one of my boys from the White House. I was like, Kev, like me and you, we deal with the same stuff in life.
Right.
I think this is important to you as well. I was like, this is what I need from you. He was like, all right, let's get it.
Right.
And it was on like the up and up
Mm,
from there. I didn't know what I was doing for real, for real.
right.
I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew what I wanted to do.
Right.
And I think that was enough fire for me to just be like, all right, we out.
Right.
Like
But I
I
think
did a
that
lot of convincing.
but I think the key part there is something that you mentioned earlier, and I think everything that you say pretty much comes full circle. When you talked about the definition of identifying lane, you talked about being true to your authentic self, right? And you said like own who you are. Like that was the definition that you gave for what it means to identify your lane. And so when it came to you starting your own nonprofit organization, like people tried to make it their thing versus you being true to who you were. You knew that
Right.
you wanted it to be named the Hustlers Guild, and that had everything to do with, like you said, you've always been a part of the culture. You've always like been a part of hip hop and music and things like that. And why would you not bring everything that is you to the organization that you know what I'm saying, are creating,
Right.
and versus other
Right.
people like saying like, nah, I think you should actually play it this way. And so I just love the fact that you said, nah, I'm going to stay true to myself. Yes, I value your voice, but there's some things, and I think this is something that more people need to tune into. You can value the voices of other people, but I think like when it comes at the expense of who you are, that's when you got to draw a line. You know what I'm saying? Like it's
Right.
like some people don't draw lines. Like yeah, I value them, and I value them so much that I will actually sort of let a piece of me go so that I can now make sure that I still have all these voices and access. But there has to be a point that says, you know what, hey, I appreciate you. I promise you I do. But this is the direction that I have to go, and I'm just gonna move with it because I know what I want to do.
Yeah, that's very, very true, especially in the sense like what people say, no one's going to give no black people with the name hustlers in front of it any money and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. And I was like, what y'all got to understand is that like we create the temperament of what people want to do for us. I was like, if I don't do it, what I want a hipster to go get some money and to monetize off this stuff, because that's what they're going to do. It's going
Right,
to
right,
be.
right.
I was like, we have to be able to be okay with who we are, and not always conforming to what's around us, because at the end of the day, if it's
Mm.
like, if this is who you are and it's respectable, why do we always have to conform to a different kind of culture that's not who we are,
Yep.
just because it's okay? And it's at the end of the day, I was like, listen, if they're not gonna rock with me because of the name the Hustlers Guild, they're not gonna rock with me if my name
Yeah.
is ABC Agency.
Right.
It's not
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
name that has
Exactly.
anything to do with it. It's literally about it. And why would I want to do business with anyone who just don't like the name? Like, that to
Mm.
me is beyond that. And I was like, nah, I'm putting everything on the table, that what they feel about the culture anyway, and
Mm.
everything about hustling. And I was like, I had to hustle at the White House. I
Right.
don't mean I was
Right.
outside selling
Right.
keys. It
Yeah.
means that I
Yeah.
really had to like make things work. So
Right.
while it's not literally, it's not like embracing the hustle, but it's literally like, yo, building our own narrative to whatever, that everything that the culture does doesn't always have to be so negative and so
Mm.
like invasive, to like, no, it is what it is. Like,
Yeah.
people behind me on this wall, they hustle to make sure that they got what we needed. And so I'm like, no, I'm sticking with this name. Like,
Yeah.
it is what it is. Like, this is what I want.
Yeah. And now hustle has a new not necessarily a new meaning, but people, the perception
Oh
has
yeah, it's
changed.
acceptable.
But saying, and you play, and you played a part in that. You know what I'm saying? So like your stick to itiveness to your authentic self now has allowed to pave the way for other people to actually say, you know what, like this is who I am. And this terminology doesn't mean what you think it means. I'm going to redefine what you think it means and
Right.
actually make it something positive. So and so let's talk about some of the work that the Hustlers Guild has been able to do. Because I remember, I think it was 2018 when we were talking about a couple of different initiatives that you have. So tell me, like, over the past couple of years, what's been the impact of the Hustlers Guild, and what are you all, I guess, most known for?
I think we had a lot of impact, and I want to be like so horrible with like the top numbers and reporting them, because I'm not always like the best to be like, boom, 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 this
Right,
is
right,
what we do.
right.
But I know for a fact that we have 864,000 kids have access to our programming by resources that we push out, whether through HBCUs or school districts. I know that for a fact. That's the number that I do know.
Mm,
And I'm pretty sure that it's grown since January. But HG is essentially known for, the way I like to present it to people is that we tell kids, everyone's always telling our kids to get off the phone and don't do this and don't do that. But we want to show kids how to monetize off of stuff that they're interested in, whether it's from like TikTok, Snapchat, sound, music, whatever. Like, we're exposing them to career fields in the hip hop industry, or
mm,
in the scope of what they like to do. And
right.
then we're showing them like these companies, like you go be a managing music director for Facebook if you wanted to, for hip hop portfolio, or for, you can do set design on a movie set. If you like the dress, you can get the costumes and stuff together. Like, we really sit down and
Mm,
like find what our kids are interested in, and then bring those people in those non-traditional STEM and arts field to come talk to our students. Like, engineering doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be over at NASA. Like,
right.
engineering is also sound engineering, to put
Mm.
beats together, which our kids know how to do. Shout out to HyperX again for like the headphones that they gave our kids in the pandemic. I really think that we're known for bridging the gap between the corporate world, hip hop, and the hood,
Mm.
essentially. And I feel like we're able to manage and navigate all of these different dialogues to say, hey, this is what our kids want, and
Wow.
go to the corporations to be like, hey, this is what you actually need to do. And the fact that we really truly understand that the Black community put trillions of dollars into these industries
Mm.
have a responsibility to give back to our students from an employment standpoint, an access standpoint, or to monetize something that they're doing. And I feel like that's what we're known for. I think that we are, like, people know us for like our actual grit in our community work that
Yeah.
we do. And a lot of celebrities or entertainers or whatever, they reach out to us because they know that we're genuine about the work that we're doing. They know that we can get it done. And people look at us, yes, we're a nonprofit, but we don't move like other nonprofits.
Mm.
some people just, they forget that we're an actual nonprofit when they come to like our events or to see their stuff that we're doing and how we're moving. We're not the traditional way of doing business because we're
Yeah.
at this point, we're no longer living in traditional times. So it's
Yeah.
all
Facts.
new game.
Yeah.
It's like free
Right.
game for anyone, and we can literally set the standard for one to want to be. In like the last 2 years since the pandemic has started, we have been on the up and up because a lot of companies couldn't figure out how to pivot. And we know how to pivot because we was poor. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like, we have no office. People trying to figure out how to do virtual stuff whole
Yeah.
time. We've been virtually because we ain't got no office. Like, you got a
Right.
phone, we
Right.
want to FaceTime and do a meeting. But like,
Right.
we've really been able to like, oh snap. No
Yeah.
one knows what to do right now. We've been doing this. So they was like, companies start reaching out like, hey, how do you do this? And how do you do that? He's like, yeah, we were poor.
Yeah.
You have millions of dollars and you can't figure out how to pivot. We were trying to pivot with $5,000 in our pocket a year,
Right.
so
Right.
it really like made a difference. But for us, is like, and the really thing I really really love about my team and everybody that are associated with us or that are drawn to us by some sense is that I don't care if it's $5 in my pocket or 50 bands.
Mm-hmm.
It got to get done
Right.
because the access in our kids' lives cannot depend on what's in my pocket.
I love
You know
it.
what I'm saying? Like, I have a certain amount of access, resources. I have so many things at my fingertips, and I've seen so many things. I've been in rooms, at tables that people weren't invited to, and I've been able to get so much stuff done. My kids can't rely on me having 50 bands in my pockets to help them.
Right.
You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
Like,
Right.
no, I'm now in a position and I now have something that I have to offer to them. And sometimes it all come from up here that I'm able to like
Right.
really navigate them through that space.
Right.
And I think that's why a lot of people really rock with us, because like, yo, we with it. I don't
Right.
care if we getting
Right.
grant money or not. Like, we doing it. You know
Right.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, we gonna do what we gotta do to make sure that our kids are straight.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I want to highlight about what you just said is that I think a lot of times like not having resources gets a negative connotation, right? But I think one of the most amazing things that comes out of a lack of resources is creativity. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
you said, like they talking about like how you got $1 million and you know how to pivot. Like we had to pivot. We were poor, you know what I'm saying? So we had to figure it out. And I think that's a message that has to be louder, because I think a lot of times like when individuals don't have it, like they think about all the things that they don't have when they don't tap all the way into everything that is
Right.
birthed out of like having to, like when you think about like some of the greatest inventions that haven't been attributed to those people that actually invented them, like how
Right.
were they invented? They were invented because they did not have access to certain things, so they had to be
Exactly.
created. And so what you talked about, like even going back to your Alabama State days, recognizing the history that you were a part of, like individuals have to understand the history to recognize that, hey, this is now, like this is your birthright. This is what you come
Right.
from. You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
so if they were able to be as creative as they were able to be without, what are you able to be creative without, the resources that you have? Like tap into that. Like, and a lot of times you actually have a leg up versus actually having a leg down. Because you think, I mean,
Right.
I didn't have this, now I don't have this. Like, man, there's a grit, there's a hustle, there's a desire, there's a drive that you have that most people do not have because they had it. Like you got something different because you
Did they
didn't have
have
it.
it?
You
They
know,
have it.
like so man, I
Right.
think I love the fact that you actually spoke about that, because I want more people to hear that, and I want them to realize that, like, man, you're not at a disadvantage, you're actually at an advantage.
Yes, you are,
Yeah.
because you're now you're problem solving, and to be able to identify that there's a problem and come up with an actual solution.
Mm,
Some people can't do that. You know what
yeah.
I mean? And
Yeah.
so you really got to like take ownership into those kinds of things. But
Yeah.
HG. We throughout the pandemic, we had over 35 celebrities to hop on our stuff. We created something called the Hustlers
Mm,
Hangout. We had students reach out to us and be like, "Yo, we're like, our teachers can't figure it out, our professors can't figure it out. We want to learn, we don't know what to do. Everyone's stuck in the house." Me and my mentor Ray Grant was sitting today like, "Yo, let's like, what if we just created something?" And
yeah.
it was like the most outrageous thing. We was doing 2 events a day.
Mm,
The first one he calls like, "Yo, Snoop want to do the first one," and I was like, "No
like
way!
like
Like,
Snoop
we're
Dogg.
not." Yeah, I was like, "Yeah, we're not doing it." I was like, "No," because then next week people want to be expecting someone bigger than
Yeah.
Snoop.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was
Yeah.
like, "No, we should rock out with Snoop." I
Mm,
was like literally in panic mode. Like, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing." We did it for
mm,
8 weeks, twice a week. And like by the end of it, I mastered online production. We had like the whole thing was like an experience. We started, I was like, yo, let's just rock out with 25 kids to give them a safe place to talk about depression, anxiety, relationship,
Mm,
gaslighting. We was talking about just like amazing thing. Ricky Smiley came through, Anthony Anderson came through, Jess Hilarious came through. It was just like the
mm,
bomb. And like, you know, they started telling their friends about us, and it kept this like
mm.
picking up and picking up. We started out with 25 kids, we ended with 284, and we could not like, and I was like, we wanted to keep it like very intimate, but it just kept growing and growing.
Mm,
And we weren't turning kids away because they asked for it. This
yeah,
is something that they literally asked for us to do. And like, it was amazing. Like, then after that, like, shout out to Matt Barnes. Matt reached
yeah.
out. Matt flew out from LA. He's friends with Red and Snoop. He was like, yo, I see Snoop did something. No one asked me to do something. We went out to dinner. He came to do our film camp, and he literally, like, Matt is a real one. He was
Mm,
like at camp, like literally working for the kids, like giving them water. And it wasn't
mm,
like no ego involved. It wasn't like, oh, I'm Matt or nothing like that. He was talking to kids. We was eating McChickens. Like we were just vibing, kicking it.
right, right,
He was
right.
like, yo, you know, like you have me at your, you know, disposal, whatever I can do to move this forward because I see what you and Red are doing. And I'm so grateful just to have like upstanding men like Red to open up his network of his friends to me, and then Matt to use like his likeness and who he is and like his
Mm,
star power and just like being accessible. And people aren't like that. And I've been around so many people, and people are
yeah.
just not like built like them. And they open up their doors, and CP3 ended up doing something for me,
Mm,
Vince Carter, and it was just because they saw what Matt, Red, Snoop, and everybody else is doing. I was like, how am I not a part of this?
yeah.
And it's just like it blew up so big, but just to have like that kind of support, that's why people was like, who do you want to work with? And I never want to say a name. I want
Mm-hmm.
to work with whoever heart is aligned with our mission, and
Talk.
there's nothing attached to it outside of like, I want to just do this out of the kindness of my heart because I
Yeah.
also feel like this truly matters to me. That's
Mm-hmm.
who I want to attract. Because if you would have told me Snoop was coming to my first virtual class, I would have been like,
Right.
what? Like, I was like, oh, snap. Like, it's going to be pressure, pressure. But
Mm-hmm.
he was so amazing. Like, he was talking to the kids about like time management and just like real stuff that matters to him. And they're just so conscious of like everything about like equitable opportunities. They never want kids to feel left out. They like really like they just open up everything. Like literally, like they are so cool. They just all like big
Yeah.
brothers. So they be
That's
looking out
dope.
for me. And I was screaming to the mountaintops to just always just say like I appreciate them because they literally changed my life as an
Yeah.
organization
That's
head by
dope.
being able to vouch. No one does that kind of thing anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So
Right.
shout out to the bros, the big
Shout out,
bros.
shout out, shout out to all y'all. That's dope. So let me ask you this. Yeah. So like, who was the first? Because you just mentioned a lot of people. You talked about Snoop. You talked about Matt Barnes. You talked about CP3. You talked about Red, who's your mentor. Who was the first of that type of caliber individuals that said, "Yo, I want to be on board with what you have going on"? And not only that, and how did that interaction take
um,
place?
I think the first I think the first one was a producer by the name of Sunny Digital. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not sure if you're familiar with Sunny Digital, but he did like a lot of stuff with like Future and stuff like that. Like he did Bands and Make Her Dance. Like
Oh,
so
okay, okay.
he's a really yeah, yeah. So he's like a really known producer, and Whoa is his name, but he went to Alabama State, and I
Okay,
met
then.
Sonny when he came to DC for something, and me and Sonny was just like kicking it with um I'm gonna Whoa because that's his industry name, but I always
Right.
call him by
Okay.
his government. He's like nobody knows that, but he went to ASU, and then I took Sonny like I gave him some presidential M&Ms from the White House. I was at the White House at the time, and
Mm,
then I told him when they were in town, he was like, "Yo, I see you doing some stuff with kids. Like Sonny wants to come in and do some kids." So Sonny brought like mad producers to one of the
mm,
schools that we were at. It was like Chops from Chicago came through with all these
mm.
producers, and like my kids were just like playing their beats for them, rapping for them, and just be able to
Mm.
do that kind of stuff for like known industry people that they knew was amazing. So they was like, yo, like this is fire. And then Rail Carter from Rock Nation,
Oh, okay,
he
okay,
heard,
yeah.
yeah, Rail heard about us, and like Rail was like, oh, this is dope. And he invited the kids up to come to Rock Nation's headquarters, and like it was like from there, it was like up and up. But it was like certain
Yeah.
people just like, yo, it was them two that was like first, and then Red. I've known Red since I was 14.
Oh,
So when
okay,
we
dope.
yeah,
Okay.
I met Red. I met him at backstage at a Mr. Cheeks concert when he was hosting it. But
Oh.
he always looked out for me, even like at ASU when he was on tour with Cat Williams. They pulled up to the dorm and was like, get in the motorcade. And they took me
Mm,
backstage and handed me a camera. Was like, "Yo, like you said you want to do this stuff. Like you about to be filming for us." So they
mm.
like that's what I'm saying. It was like it was always them like around me that looked out for me, and I think a part of it was like I always showed up,
Yeah,
and I'm
that's
not
dope.
somebody like that. I didn't take opportunities. Like I used to beg Red like for opportunities. Like yo, I would do. I don't care if it's sweeping the floor backstage. I don't care what it
Yeah.
is, what you need me to do. But if I need to be there at 3 a.m. for an opportunity, I would be there. And he'd be like, all right, cool.
Mm,
And I used to work like long hours, but that's what I wanted to do. And they just looked
mm.
out.
That's
So it is
dope.
like, it's so crazy how like God places people in your life.
Right,
I met
right,
him when
right.
I was in high school, and now we reconnected over 15 years later. And, we have like a more business relationship now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's dope.
that's dope. So I do want to kind of highlight something because I want to go back a little bit, and then we're gonna come back to the moment that we're at right now. But you said something about like you said a number, right? It's 864,000 students. So
Right.
um, that's obviously a lot. That's almost a million students. So shout out to you for the
Well,
many
thank
years that
you.
you've been into and doing this, and actually the impact that you're having. How did y'all go about getting into the schools? Because there may be somebody out there that says like, hey, I want to make an impact in the school systems. This has been on my heart because I think a lot of people find themselves in a place to where they may not have had opportunities. They see what's going on within this next generation. They want to be a resource, want to be an advocate for those. How did you go about getting into the school systems at the very beginning, and how did you build those relationships?
Right. So number one, I know a ton of teachers.
Okay.
It started out when I was at the White House. A lot of teachers reach out to me, like friends and stuff. My sister's a teacher. She'll be like, "Yo,
Okay.
come and do career day. Sign
Yeah.
me up." So I
Yeah.
just start when you do stuff like doing career day, and then they'll keep asking you. Then like other
Mm,
teachers will hear about you. So I will honestly say that like don't always go like for the big like, oh, I want to do something so huge. Like you
right.
have to really just see what opportunities are in front of you and how you capitalize off of that. Because the last thing you want is to get into a school system and you don't know like the basic infrastructure of being in a classroom as a guest or something
Mm,
like that. So I did like I was doing career days. I had like it was crazy. I was doing like maybe 10 speaking engagements a month when I was at the White House. Just go
oh
talk to
wow.
students. I don't care if you was in pre-K, third grade. I wanted to talk to them. I know a lot of kids like they were finally looking into government and now they see like a black girl working at the White House and I didn't want them to
Mm,
seem so far fetched or out of reach that they couldn't have access to me. But like really leaning on people that you know, like if someone asks me, my friends will ask like, can you read a book to the class? I'll do it.
yeah,
Like I
absolutely.
literally
Yeah.
show up. Like I'll just come up and just say what's up. I'll bring pizza to the kids, whatever
Mm,
I need to do to help people in my network to keep their kids engaged. I do it. And
mm,
literally it's just word of mouth. Like people would just recommend you, like, oh, she do this, or they'll see you posting something,
yeah.
like, can you come talk to my kids here? I get so many invitations just by like just like really looking at it small. Like, what teachers do you know?
Yeah.
Start doing like a workshop or just see if you can do a career day. Like kids love that kind of stuff before you
Mm,
just go like, oh, I have a program, I have a curriculum. No, you got to start with like a basic relationship with these people. It's all really relationships.
that's good.
Like
That's
literally
good.
everything that I've gotten so far has been based off of relationships.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Okay, so now we're gonna go back, fast forward to where we're talking about with the engagement you have, with the partnerships you have with the celebrities and things like that. Um, talk to me. I recently saw that you get ready to go back and do some work, or you have been doing some work at Alabama State, right? So tell me a little bit about how that all took place and what do you have going on with that?
Right. So with Alabama State, I am a part of a organization called Bama State Society. And
Hmm.
Bama State Society is not directly affiliated with the university, but it's also like a standalone of young millennial alumni who just want to just like create impact for change for the university, whether it's like creating, like just a safe place that we can connect with each other, or we can
Hmm.
highlight people that we may not know that the university probably don't have the bandwidth to do
Right.
anything of that sort. But it is just like stuff that I've already been doing for like other universities and stuff like that. It's just like, hey, like where can I build access out and not be officially a part
Yeah.
of like the actual university, but it's literally like just I don't want to say a social club because it's going to be way more
Yeah.
impactful than that, but it's just a place where we can kind of like build out what we want impact to look. And I'm all big about like, sometimes you can't put your ideas on somebody else and plan them to
Yeah.
like execute them out. But if you have your own platform that you're able to do that, and I've been blessed to just have classmates and people who like trust my whatever I may bring to the table, and just say like, yo, if Yaz rocking with it, then I'm a rock
Right.
with it. You know what I'm saying?
Facts.
Everyone may
Fact.
not do that with the university, but I feel like if I'm a part of something that I know, like my friends that I've known in school, like, oh, Yaz with it, then it's a no brainer. You know what
Right.
I mean?
Right.
Like,
Right.
then I'll be
Right.
a part of it, but I can still also do me in HG capacity without being
Mm.
directly affiliated with the university.
Okay. So another thing that I think is amazing that you have going on, because I mentioned earlier how you just got back from LA, then Atlanta, now you're back home, right? So you have this initiative, and I want to make sure I get the terminology right. Right? Is it pick up cameras, not guns? Is that correct?
Is don't shoot guns, shoot cameras.
Don't shoot guns, shoot cameras. I knew
Yes.
I didn't want, but I knew I needed some correction, a little bit of straightening, just a little bit of straightening. But yeah. So tell me about that initiative. Why did it begin? And tell me what do you want to become of it?
Right. So don't shoot guns, shoot cameras was the idea that Red brought to me. That is like his thing. He was like,
Okay.
yo, like, like it's a lot of crime in the city, like in cities in general, like people are never telling kids about like true healing through like art and storytelling
Mm,
and the power of that. Not he's for him is like this is how I came from DC. I got my big kick through film, and I've been able to like create things and just like really have a true depiction in a safe place that I can go somewhere emotionally and escape what may be around me.
mm,
And like Red is like on tour and he's like in movies, and like a lot of times I was like, oh, this is perfect. Like this is why God
yeah.
put us together in life,
Right.
is
Right.
because
Right.
I now have like a community sense of how to scale out programs like this. You have the idea, and it just became like an amazing relationship, and I felt like it made sense, like how everything literally came back together. I had what he needed, and he had something
Mm,
that I need in order to make this happen. So he trusted me enough with his vision to like scale it out. But initially, like we administer, or I administered a program for HG administers it, to just make sure that the success is like on track. But recently, it's been getting, especially right now in the pandemic, there's an increase in violence. So we've been able to
yeah.
get a lot of spotlight. But the goal is to literally, what we do is we educate our students on the world of filmmaking. Then we expose them through it, and then we employ them. But the really cool part about it is that our kids write their script, their short story, they
Yeah.
film it. We literally like fund the entire thing. They'll have a production house, they'll have
Let's
a
go.
staff. They'll go in, they're on sound, they're on lighting, they get to edit the sound, they get the cast. They're like literally directing the whole thing, and we're
Let's
just there just
go.
to make sure that it's good. But we're not like with the cameras, it's them. It's literally our
Mm,
kids the whole way through. And at the end of the day, we did like a big premiere for us. Our last premiere, we had like Carlos and Chico Bean come to see their
yeah.
stuff. We had Russ Parr. He came to see it. Donnell Rawlings came to see it. Of course, Matt was there. And like for our kids to get on a Zoom call and see like 10 celebrities and just them, and they
Mm-hmm.
got to watch their film. Like we just wanted, I know how Red changed my life.
Right, right,
as
right,
like
right,
a
right.
youngin. And I was just like, yo, a lot of times I think we don't think like how small of an opportunity to us may really be a turning point for somewhere else. And that's literally what our program is. By the
Mm-hmm.
end of camp, they get a stipend. If they have perfect attendance, they get a stipend, like, a monetary seed funding just to kind of make them stay in tune. And they also get a camera to just really continue their work. So they're walking away where we did Canon cameras for the last, and now we're giving, like, don't know what we're going to do this year, but the kids get to walk away and they get to come back and do it for the next role. But then our kids also get to go, like, we've been getting different shows that, like, hey, can we have
Mm.
some of your students to come in? So shout out to Chico
Wow.
Bean as well. He opened up the 85 South show for our kids
Yep,
to come
yep,
and do some stuff on there. So like, though, like, just like that is just amazing, because that literally can change our kids' life and their
yep.
entire situation by being able to just be like, a 14 or 15-year-old, you already did your own short film,
Mm-hmm.
and now you're working on like some of the best podcasts that this
Mm-hmm.
country has to offer. Is like, people don't get that opportunity.
Yep.
And so, like, that's literally what Don't Shoot Guns, Shoot Cameras is about. It's not like our kids are gang bangers and stuff like that. But the reality is that gun violence is more normalized in their community than art
Yeah.
is. And
Mm-hmm.
so our choice came down to, like, shoot the cameras and not the guns, because we want to now change the narrative of what art is, what access is to our kids, and that's going to be through filmmaking.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And the thing that I love about it is because, like you said, what Red was for you, you now, and you get to become that for other people. But the thing that I love about it the most is just that, just think about at an early age, like when you have people that come from like inner city communities and they think about, like, okay, like what options do I have in life? A lot of
Right.
times it's sports. Like, okay, I'm a hoop, I'm gonna play football. They don't also think about things that, like, oh man, I can actually go and produce my own movie.
Right.
Now, at the age of 14, at the age of 15, to already have done that, think about the possibilities that are in their minds now. And when
Right.
somebody, like, I think that access is the great divide, right? We talk about like education being the great divide, but I think when you have access and know that opportunities are available to you, then you don't have a closed mind. And if our mind is no longer closed to that, like, these are the possibilities that I have, you know that, hey man, yes, I could go and like choose the street life, but I know that I got 15 other options. If I think I only got one option, that one option isn't available to me. If I can't jump, if I can't dribble, if I can't run a ball, it's like, oh man, when this is the only thing I got. Like, no, man, I now have my mind open that, there's
Right.
25 other things that I can actually do in my life. I'm gonna make it. You know what I'm saying? So that's the part that I love about it. It's now opening the minds of these young minds to dream. You know what I'm saying? To dream, and not just dream. They can actually bring their dreams to life. And y'all are actually providing the whole play for them to actually see their dreams come to life at a very early age. So I just want to say shout out to you because, man, I just love the work that you're doing. And I just want to encourage you, man, just keep doing it. I know you ain't gonna quit because this is you. But man, I just want to give you your flowers, man, because it's amazing what you've done, and I want other people to hear about what you're doing, and even more support to come your way. And so, I guess the question I have now is what's next?
What's next? This is the crazy part. I don't even know what be happening next. Like, it'd be like the most random thing. Like, I'm so serious, Daniel. Like, I would literally just be like, okay, film camp is over. We'll do it next year. And then it's like something will align. Like, people are like, oh, I know you're cooking up something. And I'm like,
Yeah, yeah,
no, I
yeah.
literally don't. Like, I'm like on a break right now. And I always tell people, it's like, I never get so strong hold about like what's next, right?
Mm,
I'm literally the kind of person that's like, all right, if I'm in a position to create impact, I want to create impact. If something comes along my way and it makes sense, I'm going to act on it. But right now, like, we're doing like the book bag drives
yeah,
for back to school, and I'm right now I'm just supporting a lot of the organizations who I'm like, flat out, the true impact comes from partnership.
yeah.
The only way that you can truly be impactful in this work is if you have partnership. This is not an ego driven field. So right now I'm just really supporting a lot of my organizations who don't have the same access that we have,
That's
to give
dope.
them that access, whether it's through like funding or support. I've been supporting. We have like 5 or 6 more drives that are coming up in the country. But after that, I honestly don't know. Like, I wish I
Okay.
did have something to plug right now,
Right, right,
but I
right.
don't have anything visualized to plug. It's so sad.
It's all good. It's all good. Like, I like the way you just let it flow, and I think that's dope. So, I want to do this because this right here is I want for somebody that's out there watching this, like they're tuned into what you're doing. The question I have for you now is like for somebody that's out there, let's say they, they haven't made it to that place you're at now. They hear your story and like, man, that's absolutely amazing. But then they look at their life and they be like, man, like what can I now do with my life? What type of encouragement do you have for somebody that's out there that's trying to, figure their lane out, trying to figure life out, just trying to, move on to whatever is next for them? What type of encouragement do you have for them?
Well, for people that's trying to figure out like um what their thing is right now, I always tell people start off like, why do people always come to you? Like when people need your
Yeah.
help, what are they coming to you to ask you for help for? And something else is like, what do you enjoy doing, or what do you feel like never need another needs for you to do, and then tap into that. I know that everyone is not built to kind of do the social impact work, but I
Yeah.
really do think it is just to start. And the thing is, it doesn't have to be perfect. If it
Yeah.
was up to me, like I would have had stuff a different way, but I also had to realize like what's up here in my mind. Everyone doesn't have that same vision,
Yeah.
and they only know what I put out. So
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, I
That's
wanted
true.
this stuff to be grand, but it's like y'all would never know what I truly wanted for
Yeah.
my organization to be, is because I don't share that kind of stuff. But I know it's not going to be perfect, but this work cannot wait
Yeah.
for me to be
Mm.
so driven on perfection. Like it's impact work, and I'm going to
Mm.
be impactful to do it. So I say just start. Don't spend so much time thinking about it. Just try your hand at it. Throw the spaghetti against the wall. If it sticks, then you do it again. And if it don't, you find a different way to
Right.
do it. You may not even enjoy what you think you do, but the only way you're going to
That's
find out
facts.
is if you actually do it.
Yeah, that's dope. That's dope. I love it. I love it. I love it. And so this is it, man. Like I love the work that you're doing. And so tell the people like how can we support Hustlers Guild? How can we support Yasmin? How can we support the efforts that you're doing out there in the community?
The biggest way, and it's going to sound so small, but the biggest way that anyone could support us is to follow us on IG
Okay.
at the Hustlers Guild, and the stuff that we post, like adding it to your story. I'm not asking you to repost on your page. I know people are real particular about that, but it's just small stuff like just like put it in your story, or like sharing it with families that you may know that have kids that are following and on social media. Because at the end of the day, like we get so many opportunities out there in so many different cities, and we will just love engagement from different communities just to put it
Mm.
out there. We give away so much free stuff. It's
Right.
like
Right.
it's actually ridiculous how much stuff we give away. But to really just like follow us on IG and be supportive, add it to your stories. If you tell one person about us, like thank you, I'm happy.
Yeah. That's
You know,
awesome.
like
So
that's the way that I look at it.
I actually have a question for you. Let's say for example, because I'm in Alabama, right? So let's say for example, if I wanted Hustlers Guild in Alabama, or let's say somebody out there watching, like, hey, they want it in Mississippi, or they want it in Arkansas, Florida. You're already in Georgia and different states. Like, are y'all? I'm going to use franchise for lack of a better word. Is it like franchisable? Do y'all have different people y'all send to different states? Like, how does it work when somebody wants Hustler Guild in, Texas or something like that?
So what we do is we'll come in and we'll form a partnership, or we'll do like a
Okay.
pop up. But our job is to we work with a lot of organizations, but our job with these organizations, 12 organizations that are part of our coalition, is to provide them access and to help enhance their programming. So people will request us, like in the places you
Mm.
named, it's so funny. I was like, oh my gosh, these are like requests that we've been getting like the last
Mm.
week for all
Come on
these
now.
places.
Come
So I was
on
like,
now.
for in-person stuff, I was like, oh my gosh, you literally hit every place that asks for us. But like we come in, we do pop-ups and stuff like that. Like people send us stuff all the time, and like we're like doing the Department of Corrections in Denver actually reached out to me, and I'm supposed to
Oh
be
wow.
talking to them about talking to some of their residents down at one of their complexes to talk about like literally the stuff that we talk about. So people always reach out to me, and I always respond. Like
That's
I'm
dope.
very accessible. It's actually probably bad, but I'm really
Right.
accessible.
Right. That's awesome. That's awesome. And so, man, this has been an amazing podcast, and I'm excited about this because this actually hits near to my heart because I come from an environment where I'm the youngest of 11 kids. So you think about 13 people in one house, and thinking that, being a young kid from Alabama, thinking that football was it. And when football didn't work out for me, I was just like, what is life now? Everything that I
Right.
felt valuable for doing, I no longer have. And now it began this journey of having to even pick myself up out the ground. When it was even hard, having to realize, okay, what is a new dream that I could have, and it being difficult to commit to something else because of the failure that happened within the last one. And so I think it's amazing that if we can actually prevent people from getting to that space,
Right.
then we can. There's no repairing that needs to be done. And so I'm excited for the work you're doing. I'm so grateful that you graced the Identify Your Lane podcast. But the one thing that I want to highlight from what you said is this: like, the one constant that I saw throughout your journey is mentorship. You actually talked about how I would reach out to so and so, and they would say, "Hey," even when you talked about going to the White House, they were like, "Yeah, go do it." It's like, well, I'm not going to get paid. Go do it. You know what I'm saying? And even when it comes to Red and how he's been in your life since you were a teenager, and the impact that he's had on that, like, mentorship has actually played an instrumental role in not only just mentorship, but having like wise counsel, having wise individuals around you that can guide you in the right direction. That, and even earlier you said, like, there are going to be individuals that won't necessarily be supportive of where you're headed. Like, that's not going to be individuals that you want to share those dreams with, because they're going to tear
Right.
those down. You got to make sure you have the right voices in your ear. And so for anybody that is out there that is looking to figure this thing out, make sure you have the right voices in your ear. You can't bring your dreams, you can't bring your desires, your goals to everybody. Make sure you have the right voices in your ear. And so I thank you so much for joining us today. So outside of the Hustlers Guild, tell me, where can we connect with Yaz personally? Like, where is your website, whether it's your social media? We've heard all about the Hustlers Guild. I'm bringing some attention back to you because people need to connect with you. So how can we get connected with Yaz?
IG, I guess Yasmin Salina. Like that's probably the best way, or on LinkedIn, Yasmin
Okay.
Salina. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Awesome. 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 So thank you so much for another segment of the Identify Your Lane. Remember, make sure you have the right voices in your ear. Find out what you're passionate about. Find out, like she said, throw that spaghetti to the wall. Make sure it sticks, and whatever it is, that's the thing that you keep on doing. So thank you so much for another amazing, another Identify Your Lane. We're out. Peace.
Thank you.